Agent Mulder, I'm Dana Scully. I've been assigned to work with you.
Oh, isn't it nice to be suddenly so highly regarded?
Today, we're going to talk about the X-Files, my favorite program of all time. As I've said before, there were three main channels when I was growing up: ABC, CBS, and NBC. But in the 1980s, programming began to change. I finally recognized PBS, and maybe it was there all the time, but as I grew up, I started to pay attention. And cable began showing up in my neighborhood. Media mogul Rupert Murdoch decided in the 80s he wanted to participate in American television. So Mr. Murdoch purchased an independent network. Mr. Murdoch went through TCF Holdings, which is 20th Century Fox. And in 1986, he purchased Fox Broadcasting Network, so there would now be 4 channels on the lineup. The channel launched in 1986, and he purchased it for $2.5 billion. And it began with a show called The Late Show, which was to compete with the traditional Tonight Show that had been on for decades. I used to watch it, when Johnny Carson was still there, and then it went to Joan Rivers, and I think in 86 it was Jay Leno that was hosting the Tonight Show. There are several programs that came out in the early years of Fox Network that launched some great careers. One of the first ones was Married with Children. It ran for 10 years and launched careers for Christina Applegate, Ed O'Neill, and Katie Seagal. There was also In Living Color that launched the careers of the Wayans brothers, Jim Carrey, Jennifer Lopez, and Rosie Perez. And one of my favorite and earliest of the programs was the famous 21 Jump Street with Johnny Depp. There was also Melrose Place, another of my favorites, and Party of Five with Jennifer Love Hewitt, as a teenager no less, who by this time has had many programs. I think she's at the ensemble of 911 at this point. So the channel began to make successful programs. And in September of 1993, it introduced a program called The X-Files. The X-Files was created by a writer named Chris Carter, and it goes over the story of 2 FBI agents who were thrown together in this kind of I'll debunk your life's work while you are searching for the truth kind of way. Scully was very scientific. Everything could be explained scientifically, and he was very much, there's something out there and I want to know the truth. It was science fiction, of course, and as somebody who loves science fiction from the time I was a child watching The Twilight Zone, they never lasted long enough for me. I was always left hungry for more. Even Star Trek lasted only 3 seasons, so my hope was that this one would do it, but I was a little bit of a jaded viewer. Dana Scully was a medical doctor who graduated from Stanford Medical School. She worked for the FBI about 2 years. They recruited her immediately out of Stanford Medical School. And she said at one point that her parents still considered her going to work for the FBI as an act of rebellion. Dana believed that if she went to the FBI, though, she would be able to distinguish herself in her career. The first season, we meet Scully's family in more depth. Now, I'm going to go over Scully's family before I move on. Dana Catherine Scully was born February 23rd, 1964. Dana was a Pisces, and according to the program, she was played by an actress named Gillian Anderson that I really had never heard of before. Scully's mother's name was Margaret. She was a stay-at-home mother and was played by an actress named Sheila Larkin. And her father was William Scully, who was a naval officer. He was played by actor Don S. Davis. She had a sister by the name of Melissa Scully, who she considered flaky, but really was kind of intuitive and artistic. She was played by Melinda McGraw. There was Bill Jr., played by Pat Skipper, and she had a much younger brother named Charles Scully, who kind of stayed out of the way. In fact, I think he's only vaguely seen one time towards the end of the show, but he's referred to. Scully went to the University of Maryland for her bachelor's degree, and she studied physics. In fact, her senior program was Einstein's twin paradox. I will say this several times, but Dana Scully is my favorite character. During the 90s, Gillian Anderson and Dana Scully were role models to a lot of women. Okay, so we've gotten her out of the way. Let's talk about her partner, Fox Mulder. He was played by an actor named David Duchovny. I had also never heard of him before. Now, I know it's not such a big deal that I don't know who the actors were. That's how they get started. But I was a TV addict. I was raised on television. It was my babysitter and my friend. I even knew there were 2 Gladys Kravitz of Bewitched, the second being Sandra Gould. That's pretty bad. Now let's go back to the X-Files. Fox Mulder was a handsome, bespectacled, kind of intellectual-looking guy that resided in the basement of the FBI building in Washington, D.C. And that's where his office was. And that's where they put you when you're working on the X-Files. Initially, he went to training at Quantico, Virginia in 1984. He went to the FBI Bureau in 1986. At a young age, he had helped them identify and capture a serial killer by the name of Luther Lee Boggs, which is why they were so interested in him. His first assignment was the Violent Crimes Unit. This is where he first discovered a set of files that were unsolvable. These files were mysterious. They were cold cases often, unsolvable. Some of them paranormal, and there were even UFO sightings and experiences among them. Fox became obsessed about them. Fox Mulder graduated from Oxford University in psychology. He wrote a paper on serial killers and the occult. He was raised in Martha's Vineyard, and part of his affection or obsession with the files is the fact that he had a younger sister named Samantha. And when he was 12 and she was about 8, they were at home one night while their parents were out. And she was abducted right out of their living room. Bright light shining, her being taken out of the house. And after that, finding what happened to her became his life's mission or obsession. And the X-Files played right into that, which understandably, after somebody suffers a loss like that, it changed his direction in life. Chris Carter cleverly gave Fox Mulder his birthday. So Fox Mulder was born in Martha's Vineyard, October 13th, 1964. He's a Libra. His father was Bill Mulder, who, unbeknownst to Fox for most of his life, he worked for the federal government and eventually became part of the group known as the Syndicate. He often worked with events and cases that would be similar to his son's. Bill Mulder was played by actor Peter Donnet. As the show progressed and Mulder's father's work became more known to him and to his wife Tina, who was played by Rebecca Tulin, Tina suffered, became distraught, and took her own life. And Fox never saw his father the same way as he progressed through the show. And that is the sum total of Fox Mulder's family. He and his mother and father. Bill Mulder would eventually be murdered, so he only shows up in the program as a flashback, a ghost, or really a memory. Another character introduced in the first episode that would play a big part is the Cancer Man, cigarette-smoking man. His name was G.C.B. Spender. That stands for Carl Gerhard Busch Spender. He comes in the first pilot, and he will be prominent throughout. He was played by William B. Davis, and thought the show would never last when he took the job. He becomes more prominent in Fox Mulder's life later on. He recruits his son named Jeffrey Spender into the agency. That agency is the CIA, by the way. He tries to kill him at one point, but fails and instead tortures him. Cancer Man eventually gets cancer from all the smoking and is debilitated. Cancer Man was part of the group that Bill Mulder also associated with, working for the federal government, the CIA, the syndicate. They were all affiliated. He is in and out as an antagonist and attempts to sabotage the work that Scully and Mulder do throughout the show. In season 4, there's an episode where they provide one explanation or possible explanation for the Cancer Man story. Cancer Man is the villain. Now, the first episode I want to talk about, of course, is the pilot. It's the story of mysterious deaths among teenagers. It takes place in Oregon in a little town called Bellflower, a take on Bellflower, where Chris Carter was from. Bellflower, California. By the way, Chris Carter said he got his inspiration for the X-Files from a couple of things as he was growing up. A TV show called Kolchak, which I'm going to do a podcast about, and the Watergate scandal. He wrote a script for the pilot which included a group of teens and close encounters of the third kind. They meaning Scully and Mulder, go to investigate the mysterious deaths. A phrase you're going to hear often from Mulder: Scully, we have a case. There are some mysterious deaths. Often in this show, especially in the beginning, Scully's take on the cases seems inadequate with what the results yield at the end. Her faith in the paranormal and the supernatural only increase as time goes on. The pilot gives Scully her first take on seeing something up close that she could not explain. Her appearance as a Joe Friday-type character is often exhibited here because she believed there was always a logical, scientific explanation for all the cases they investigated. One that did not include the paranormal or UFOs. The first few seasons, it was filmed in British Columbia. A lot of programs in the 90s did that because the geography was similar in Northern Oregon, and also it was much cheaper than filming in California. Superman and Lois, Smallville, Supernatural, and many others, The Flash, were all filmed in Canada. That would change over the next few years as they started evolving, including David Duchovny's marriage to Téa Leoni. After the case has been resolved, we see Scully in Chief Blevins' office. She hands him the report of her first case with Mulder. She was sent there to debunk the X-Files, as I said. She's honest with the case, though she says she has no evidence for her report except for one thing: this tiny little device taken out of the necks of one of the teenagers. That was a communication device that the aliens used to contact him. He revealed this to Scully. She handed it to Chief Blevins and walked out the door. There is a character in episode 2 introduced as Deep Throat. And yes, that is a take on the 2 Washington Post reporters that broke the Watergate scandal. Their informant was Deep Throat. He's Mulder's first informant and asks for discretion and tells him, "It's only so long as it is in my best interest to do so." He remains till the end of the first season when he's killed off. Though I just revealed this, I'm going to try to keep as much information on the down low because I really want you to watch the show. Deep Throat comes to Mulder because he wants to atone for his behavior. In the episode called EBE, Season 1, Episode 7, he has a monologue in which he reveals this. After the Roswell incident in 1947, even at the brink of the Cold War, there was an ultra-secret conference attended by the United States, the Soviet Union, the People's Republic of China, Britain, both Germanys, and France. It was agreed that should any extraterrestrial biological entity survive a crash, the country that held that being would be responsible for its extermination. Deep Throat continues on. I have the distinction of being one of 3 men to have exterminated such a creature. I was with the CIA in Vietnam. A UFO was sighted for 5 nights over Hanoi. The Marines shot it down and brought it to us. And then he pauses and is quieter. It didn't know what a gun was. Or perhaps they don't show emotion. But that innocent and blank expression as I pulled the trigger has haunted me. Until I found you. That's why I come to you, Mr. Mulder, and will continue to come to you to atone for what I've done. And maybe, someday, through you, the truth will be known. After Deep Throat's departure from the show, he is replaced by a character we call Mr. X. Each time Mulder needed him, he would put an X on his window with masking tape. Mr. X was originally going to be played by a woman, but was then replaced by Stephen Williams, also an alumni of 21 Jump Street, where he played Captain Adam Fuller. Where Deep Throat was suffering from guilt, Mr. X is afraid, and he's selfish, and he's taking care of himself. Another person introduced that is one of my favorites besides Scully, he's played by an actor named Mitch Pileggi, and his character is Assistant Director Walter Skinner. He oversees the work of Scully and Mulder. He operates, though, by the book. He's very sort of by the book. At times, he appears to hold Scully and Mulder back, but he is the first one to go to bat for them. And eventually, in Season 11, Episode 6, called Kitten, he reveals part of his story and says that their dogged search for the truth has helped restore his faith in life and in people. He is another character that has a traumatic Vietnam War story. Skinner went to Vietnam at 18 years old, and he watched his fellow soldiers on the drug MK Naomi murder Vietnamese people. It was a drug given to the soldiers by the U.S. government to make them more violent by tapping into their fear response. The drug made them more efficient soldiers, efficient killing machines. It helped them move around their own humanity. At one point, at a different time, he also had to shoot a 10-year-old Vietnamese boy who entered their camp strapped with grenades to blow up the soldiers. His belief in aliens grew throughout the show, much like Scully's. But I also liked him for another reason. I once saw a photo of him shirtless. I think it was after the show. I might have seen it during the show, but I didn't remember. But I certainly did after the show. And that guy was hot. He worked out, and he was a good-looking man. They do an episode about him in Season 3, Episode 21, called Avatar, when he is accused of killing a prostitute. Now back to Chief Scott Blevins. He's played by an actor named Charles Chaffee. He mostly disappears after Season 1 and is replaced by Walter Skinner. There's some other characters worth mentioning also. They're part of a group called the Lone Gunmen. They even get their own spin-off show for a season. There are 3 men. John Fitzgerald Byers, that's his character, played by actor Bruce Harwood. He says in the show he was named after President Kennedy. Melvin Frohicke, played by actor Tom Braidwood, and Richard Lingle Langley, played by Dean Hagland. Ringo was the most aggressive member of the Nerd Squad, and that's what they were. They were a group of computer geeks that could program and solve any technical issue. And there was another thing about them. The group adored Mulder. They followed him around in kind of a hero worship stance. And when he got with Scully as a partner, they've embraced her too. They're like their own personal fan club. And their value is their computer nerds and geniuses. During the 9th season, in the episode called Jump the Shark, the trio sacrifices themselves for the good of humanity. Also, there's an organization called NICAP, National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomenon. Matt Fenning was a member of that organization, an epileptic and a UFO abductee. Scott Bellis plays the character. He forged a friendship early with Fox Mulder and stayed friends with him throughout the time he was on the X-Files. He lived in this silver trailer and followed around behind UFO reported activity. He is re-abducted in the show. One of the features of the program is it has several arcs that run through it, the main one being the existence of extraterrestrial presence in the world and their possible planned invasion overlaid the whole entire show. There's also the reveal of the Syndicate in 1947. There's Scully's arc that deals with her being abducted, along with Mulder's attempt to find out what happened to his sister Samantha. For a moment, back to the Syndicate, which is really a group of government staff members that are allied with the alien colonists in an attempt to play with them better than against them, an attempt to become allies. There is a flashback episode, a time travel, as it were. Darren McGavin, as an old man, playing Special Agent Arthur Dales, who is working with Bill Mulder around an alien parasite. McGavin was the original Kolchak from the TV show. I'm going to stop for a second around the arcs, because in Season 2, Gillian Anderson becomes pregnant, and the network wanted to recast her. She'd only been on one season. But Chris Carter fought for her, and he said no. So they wrote her pregnancy into the scripts. And that is why, during Season 2, she is abducted for a few episodes. Now, back to the arcs. Another arc is Alex Krycek, the man who kills Bill Mulder. He comes back to kill Scully, but accidentally kills her sister, Melissa. Alex Krycek is played by an actor named Nicholas Lee. Krycek and Mulder go to Russia for a smaller arc around an alien parasite in a meteorite. It's called Purity, more commonly referred to as black oil or goo, and called the Black Cancer by the Russians. It was an alien virus that survived and thrived in petroleum deposits underground on Earth. It is the life force of the alien colonists, which they seemingly use to reproduce their kind, as well as infect other alien races in order to conquer the universe. They send in a shape-shifting alien with the look and power of Arnold Schwarzenegger. This character is played by an actor named Brian Thompson. According to the character they called the well-manicured man, played by John Neville, the black goo, or oil, in the meteorite is the original life on Earth. There is another part of the show that is my favorite. It is called the Monster of the Week. They are the program in which Scully and Mulder go out on cases. They are fun and spooky and campy at times. Some of my favorite episodes, one is Squeeze in Season 1. He is called Squeeze because he can fit into very small spaces. He squeezes into the homes or offices of those he murders. It's a story of a man named Eugene Toombs, who began his murderous kind of adventure in 1903. And he comes back every 30 years. He doesn't age at all. And he murders 3 people, and then he goes dormant again. And he lies dormant in sort of a nest he creates out of stuff, trash. Season 1, Episode 3, Toombs eventually stalks Scully. And of course, she's saved at the end. He is also a character that returns again to the dynamic duo later on. Now, also in Season 1, Episode 10 is Fallen Angel, where we first meet Max Fenning. There is a UFO crash in Wisconsin that Scully and Mulder go to investigate. Episode 13 of the first season is where we're introduced to Scully's family. beyond the sea. It's where her father passes away. It is her first brush with a paranormal or supernatural experience around her father's death. In Season 2, the episode 6, called The Ascension, is where Dana Scully is abducted by aliens. Thank goodness for Carter. He writes a plot that allows Gillian Anderson to go off and have her baby. He also brings back a character, which they do sometimes in this series, and makes him part of her storyline. Steve Railsback plays Dwayne Barry. The season ends with a wonderful story about the Anasazi natives in the New Mexico desert. Now, I live in the desert and I love it. And I've always appreciated that episode. And after some research, I found out that it was actually filmed outside of Vancouver, Canada, where they brought in 1,600 gallons of paint and painted the area to look like the desert. But in this episode, a native child finds a boxcar with a burned corpse of an alien in it. And it's one of those that ends, and then the beginning of the next season, they resolve it. Now, like many shows of its time, there are actors that go from the X-Files to the other programs. It's one of my favorite features about this time period. They also feature actors that are going to end up becoming giant stars, one of them being Ryan Reynolds. In an episode that I cannot pronounce, but I'm going to try, it's Syzygy. It is a configuration where two planets align, powerful like sun and moon, and they either are conjunct or opposed, and they create enormous energy. And in this story, two high school girls born the same day go mad when these planets are aligned for a brief period astrologically. And Ryan Reynolds plays a character named J. Boom da Boom. The girls tell Boom that the cult seeks a blonde virgin as its next victim, convincing him to turn off the road. And the next day, the police find Boom hanging from a cliff. Out of the sight of the police, Terry and Margie sit at the top, laughing. By the end of alignment, everything but the girls go back to normal. Another actor, Jack Black. Then there's Aaron Paul, Lily Tomlin, who was famous way before the X-Files, Ed Asner, also a veteran actor, Minnie Driver, veteran, David Alan Grier, he was also on In Living Color, Téa Leoni, who ended up marrying David Duchovny, Lucy Liu, Seth Green, Felicity Huffman, who goes to Desperate Housewives, Kathy Griffin, the comedian, Bryan Cranston, that goes to Breaking Bad, Lucy Lawless, Burt Reynolds, veteran actor, and many, many more. Vince Gilligan, who wrote for the X-Files, later became more famous for writing for Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Again, going between shows. My favorite? There's so many, but I think I like the one the best is in Season 4, Episode 5, In the Field Where I Died. It is about Fox Mulder's reincarnation experience from the Civil War. As a believer in reincarnation, his response was poignant to me, both touching and supernatural in keeping with the program's theme. Episode 7 was a story about the cancer man, the cigarette-smoking man. It tells a version of a story of how he came to be what he was. Was it true? Not necessarily, but it does give him a backstory. In Season 5, they began ramping up the arcs around the existence of extraterrestrial and abductions. It is here when Mulder realizes somebody's working against him in the Bureau. I also want to talk more about the black goo, but from a different perspective. It's a common theme in many science fiction shows. In present-day Severance, Westworld, and even in Stranger Things. It is the goo that creates the venom, maybe. Did it start in Spider-Man? Or was it when they handed you a flashlight in The Outer Limits and said, "Good luck, buddy"? In the X-Files, it was supposedly the original life form. During the arc of Seasons 5 and 6, colonists realize the Syndicate is double-crossing them and sends in the shape-shifting clone of Arnold Schwarzenegger as an assassin. There is a group of colonists called the Alien Rebels, known for their grotesque appearance, having every orifice sealed on their face to protect themselves from the purity from the black goo. The energy ramps up this arc as the Alien Rebels are killing the abductees, hoping to thwart the alien invasion and takeover of the planet. Okay, enough of that. We could analyze the show forever, but let's go back to some of my favorite shows. Let's talk about Dreamland 1 and 2. Clever and campy. Check out Season 6, Episodes 4 and 5. Scully and Mulder are called on assignment and drive to Area 51. When Mulder and a man in black meet Michael Fletcher, played by Michael McKean, as a craft flies overhead, they change bodies. Mulder's in Fletcher's body, Fletcher's in Mulder's body. Mulder is taken into custody as Fletcher's wife hears him call out for Scully. Joanne Fletcher, his wife, is played by Saturday Night alum Nora Dunn. Once he's taken into custody, begins calling Scully on the telephone to tell her what happened. It's a two-parter, Monster of the Week, and it's 2 weeks of fun. I like it. Another one of my favorites, Ed Asner and Lily Tomlin as a dead couple that haunts their home and how the ghost stole Christmas. Season 6, Episode 6. Mulder and Scully are trapped inside the house with these two ghosts. The energy ramps up as their death follows Scully and Mulder, and the plot unfolds as to what happened to them. The truth is there are so many fun episodes that are Monsters of the Week, and often they are my very favorite part of the show. The cast of characters and the deadpan humor of Scully and Mulder. The X-Files produced 11 total seasons and 2 movies. The X-Files in 1998 and The X-Files I Want to Believe in 2008. I personally think we could update The X-Files and keep it going my whole life. I would watch. I think I may break down some seasons in future videos. I'll see. One final bite. The music. The music was composed by a man named Mark Snow, who got involved with the X-Files through a friendship with the executive producer Goodwin. The music was composed by him, but the echo effect in the beginning theme was done by accident when Snow put his elbow on a keyboard and activated it. To this day, when I hear that sound, I run for the television or the computer or my phone. It is a show that took us from analog to digital, took us all the way through the introduction into the immersion of the internet age. Thanks for listening, and if you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button.